The Heart of Enmity. Deepwoken's latest boss has given the community quite a challenge for your average player. Many guides have come out in recent weeks claiming to be the best or the fastest guide, but who are these guides really catering to? The more experienced PvE players. But look no further. This guide here is to explain what the average PvE group should expect for their first ever Enmity run. We plan to go in depth about Enmity's mechanics and what a proper team could look like as you go up for that fateful elevator ride. So, let's begin with the first part, team composition. For this guide, your first team will consist of the full 8 players that you can fit into the elevator, and this is for a couple of key reasons. A, you want as many people to potentially save you and fulfill all the roles a proper team has. B, while Enmity will have more health scaling, you have a better chance to learn and improve on the spot. And C, you'll have more people to get Enmity's attention in order to swap off of him and his minions as needed so you don't wipe. With all of those reasons out of the way, it's going to allow us to go right into what I think your team should look like. So with 8 players, here are my recommendations for the roles in your team, and they'll look a little something like this. 3 tanks, 2 supports, 2 DPS, and 1 all-rounder. Each player will have their own vital role to play, so communication will be key. However, right now I want to go over what each role could look like from a build perspective and the most optimal options, in my opinion, for each role.
With such a pain to be alone and lonely in the way.
The tank has the role of keeping Enmity's attention and parrying all of his attacks as consistently as possible. I personally would argue that this role is the most important because one tank keeping Enmity's busy frees up your entire team to support the tank through the means they have available to them. I normally don't like to suggest specific builds for Enmity, so I'm just going to lay out some general stats and talents and stuff like that you'd want to consider if you're going to be a tank to have an easier time dealing with Enmity. So first off, we have Brick Wall. It is a big essential as it allows you to get back into the fight pretty quickly without having to deal with ragdolls. Mythic Stability can save you from a catastrophic mistake, but don't consider it a foolproof save because if he doesn't fling you after knocking you, you might get screwed over. So your teammates will need to get Enmity's attention in order to make proper use of Mythic Stability. Otherwise, High Fortitude or defensive talents are always welcome, especially since Enmity likes breaking people's blocks. But if you're interested in an attunement, Iron Singer's Shadow are my personal picks due to talents like Iron Singer's Instinct and Shadow Rift. Both are great defensive options at reducing the damage you take or just avoiding it altogether. Bells are also very important in what you decide to do for fighting Enmity, so I'm going to go over a couple that I think are the best choices and why. Sacred Field is a good bell for team players as it will reduce the damage everyone around you takes, especially if it's corrupted with high physical, as Enmity's attacks do have a pretty large area of effect. Run It Back is superb for tanking, as it is based on the number of hits you take, not the damage itself. If your tank is already experienced at parrying Enmity, this also means that they can save damage and not waste support/healer resources, as during Run It Back, you won't be taking any damage anyways. Support roles when doing Enmity is fairly simple. Keep an eye on your allies' health, and make sure your tanks are healed enough to stay in the fight for as long as they need to be. Support has gotten pretty diverse in how you can choose to build it these days, but most of these are going to be focused around what oath you need to pick, generally speaking. So I have a short list here of the top oaths for supporting your teammates and why. We have Link Strider at number 1, Salt Chemist at number 2, and Blind Seer at number 3. Link Strider is the best oath purely due to its simple and straightforward healing that you can do at range. The link itself also provides buffs to whoever it's connected to, enhancing your tank as well as allowing you to heal them when needed. Combine that with some other self-sustain like using Reinforce, and a Link Shredder is a very valuable asset when doing Enmity, not to mention the fact that they can see all their allies' HP anyways. Salt Chemist is a pretty solid oath for support, but after recent nerfs to thrown pots, you can't really debuff Enmity, but that doesn't mean you can't help your team still. Potions such as healing potions, sanity potions, and speed potions are all very helpful in getting your friends back into the fight and healed, and with talents like Placebo Effect, you can heal really up to like 5 people at once with just a single healing potion. Just keep in mind that with new recent changes to Enmity mechanics, you'll need to be careful when you do this. Lastly, we have Blind Seer. As well, it has healing, it's simply not as effective when compared to the more versatile and active roles that Link Strider and Salt Chemists would play. Mind Soothe is pretty helpful in making sure that you can heal multiple people if they're backed off, but you can go insane very quickly through spamming this, which will reduce your effectiveness in the boss fight if you begin shaking and you don't have potions to mitigate this. So a good synergy would be bringing one Blind Seer and one Salt Chemist with Sanity Pots, that way you can Mind Soothe with little issue. Otherwise, I personally recommend picking up a Link Strider and a Salt Chemist should you decide to play support for your team. Great bells for support are Sacred Field, as you can kind of just place them nearby and simply help your friends reduce damage just by kind of sitting near it so you're not getting hit. Or you can do Resurrection if you want to res people that you think are struggling in the corner, they're low health, or if Enmity, is about to kill them, you might be able to clutch up and res them, but it's iffy on that. I'd stick with Sacred Field. DPS is a very simple and very straightforward role. Your goal is to stack as much damage as possible to kill Enmity's Enforcer minions, as well as helping tanks to deal extra damage to Enmity when his minions aren't around. There isn't anything too crazy or special about this role, just pick something with high damage, usually like a Diluvian or Hellmode build, and you can fit into this role with little issue. The two bells that I recommend are Run It Back and Corrupt Payback for tanking purposes when dealing with Enmity's minions. The last role in our little team comp is the All-Rounder, which has a very unique and almost ambiguous spot in our team's composition. So when you're trying to figure out who you're going to be going up the elevator with, this person should be looking to fill a weak spot that your team has. Do you not feel that 3 tanks are going to be enough for your group? Have them be number 4. You feel like you'd want a little bit more healing? Have them fill in as a support. Do you want somebody that's good at holding Enmity's attention with various tools? Have them make a build tailored to aggro fishing, which will be discussed a little bit later in the video. Have them do that. There isn't anything I can openly recommend for this role, aside from talking with whoever you're going to go up with in your team, and seeing what they feel that they need for a successful Enmity run. This role easily is one of the most diverse to have, so it's up to whoever's doing it to properly prepare for it. This role is your wild card, so they can be anything that you need. But with all of that information squared away, let's go look at Enmity's mechanics and how your first time doing Enmity should, hopefully, go. There are a couple base Enmity mechanics that we need to go over before you go up and fight Enmity, just so players are aware and you can properly plan for them. Enmity does have immunity to enchants, which means there isn't much to discuss when wanting to run a specific enchantment. Enmity's minions are weak to enchants, so if you want to run something for them, you have a couple options like Vampirism, Providence Thorns, Metal if you want your armor rack, stuff like that, but otherwise, not much to talk about. It keeps things simple and straightforward. Enmity also has high resistance to projectiles. Now while spamming projectiles from a distance can be helpful, you'll want to base most of your kit on up-close melee damage, no matter what role you have if you're going to fight Enmity. Enmity also has high elemental resistances. While your mantras are still going to be helpful, and we'll discuss certain mantras for certain roles, you'll want to focus your damage mainly on M1 attacks. He also boasts immunity to bleed and knockback from things like flourishes. Enmity now has anti-heal, so his attacks will do varying degrees of anti-heal, which means now your supports need to pay a little bit more attention to when they're healing their teammates. Lastly, Enmity has high oath damage resistance. Again, the design behind this boss is to be up close and personal, so we're basing our main strategy around this concept. With all of these mechanics though out of the way, we're going to go over his moveset and the best ways to deal with them. Enmity's biggest attack chain is the fact that he can almost chain his various attacks together in different versions, so there's no distinct patterns that we can give you here in this guide video because he picks random moves. So what we're going to be doing is going over each move and showing off a couple unique mechanics that will occur when fighting him. First off, we have the Enmity Stomp combo. Enmity will stomp his boot down, dealing decent damage but applying a very long duration knockdown, and then swinging his axe again. You need to be careful of this move because if you get hit by the stomp, you're going to be taking extra hits from Enmity, and that means you're going to have to swap your tank out very quickly. As long as you parry the stomp, you should be okay if you want to dodge the axe swing and not worry about parrying it, but try to parry everything the best that you can. Enmity's 2-hit chain, it's a very simple move. He does a 2-hit chain with his axe. It's not very complicated, but he can use this in conjunction with his other moves, such as grabs, his stomp move that's been previously discussed, and other things that will be discussed very shortly. Keep this in mind, it is one of his bread and butter moves. Alright, Enmity has a grab where he'll put his hand down in an attempt to grab the player in front of him. If he successfully grabs the player, he will lift them up and baseball bat them away from him, doing massive damage and sending them flying across the arena. Now, there are two variations to this move. We have the baseball bat version that was just discussed, where you just go flying across the arena, and you have what I call the home run derby, where he will specifically bat you towards another person to deal damage to both of you. Enmity usually likes to target one specific person with his home run derby version of his grab. So make sure you can figure out who he's targeting and simply yell baseball bat when you see him successfully grab someone. That way the intended victim can parry in time to stop the damage. Enmity also has a simple unblockable baseball bat swing that he will do at the end of his chains usually, and if it hits you, you just go flying across the arena. This move can easily send groups into disarray because it displaces your tank, so make sure you have a tank ready to come in and get his attention, that way he doesn't roam towards your supports. Enmity's axe throw will throw his axe at anybody who's running away from him that he is currently aggroed towards while he's attacking them. Keep in mind, this attack only triggers if the players that he's fighting get a little too far from him. So as long as you can keep Enmity up close and personal, you'll be okay and shouldn't have to worry about this attack very often unless he either grabs and baseball bats you or just uses his normal bat swing to try to hit you. Lastly, Enmity has his Enforcer summon, where he'll raise his axe and you'll see 3 portals appear. Enmity-specific Enforcers will appear out of it, boasting increased stats. So the best strategy for this is to have each person in your group grab one Enforcer and try to lure them away. That way whoever's pairing Enmity can focus on doing that without having to worry about the Enforcers as well. Once the Enforcers are killed, you can then focus all your resources on fighting Enmity again. Now we will quickly discuss some specific interactions that you should be aware of that involve these attacks. When you're using the talent Force Your Way from things like Ignition Deep Delver and the Ignition Gauntlets, it allows you to parry unparryable attacks. However, Enmity is not the biggest fan of this. So Enmity will attempt to punish you when you parry one of his unparryable attacks by immediately throwing out another unparryable attack. This could be his grab or his bat swing, so keep this in mind, you'll need to react quickly. If you're not comfortable with doing this, just simply don't run this talent and focus on dodging his unblockables instead. As previously mentioned, Enmity will often mix up his stomp and 2 chain attacks into unblockables such as the bat swing or his grab. After the final hit in his chain, he usually does no actions for a short duration, allowing players to get a couple of hits in before he begins his next chain of attacks. With all of his general mechanics and moves covered, we'll now go over a very general strategy guide of how you can deal with Enmity properly. The biggest thing that I can stress to you is that communication is key. When doing this boss, it is extremely important to call out when you want to get Enmity's attention. That way your tanks do not dogpile Enmity, because as an example, say all 3 of your tanks are fighting Enmity in the front, and 2 of them mess up parrying. That means 2 of your tanks are going to be out of the fight for a little bit longer than you think. And what if your 3rd tank then begins to mess up? You have nobody that can actively grab his attention effectively. So you need to communicate when you want tanks to swap out, when you want people to go in and out, and keep your supports in the loop as well. That way they know who to heal, who needs healing, call it out if you need, and all these other very important things. Something as simple as, hey, I'll get Enmity's attention, can go miles to make sure that your supports and DPS are not unnecessarily aggroed by Enmity or hit by him. Or worse, wipe. However, I'm going to give you some unique tips and tricks that I've learned while grinding Enmity with my guild that you guys may find useful as well for your runs. Iron Skin is actually a finally useful mantra in this boss fight because it allows you to stall Enmity's Enforcer minions. It lasts a decent amount of time, as well as having you take minimal damage while giving your teammates time to get Enmity's attention, and then they can come help you deal with the Enforcers. The talent that allows you to regen armor wall in Iron Skin can also be very helpful if you did not bring repair kits, which you should. Spark Swap is also a good tool for swapping Enmity aggro, as you can swap out your low health tanks or supports, whoever may be caught in Enmity's crosshairs, and cause you to immediately get his attention by hitting him, and he should deal with you instead of killing your friends. Flaming Scourge grab variant is also a very handy tool for getting Enmity, as you can forcefully displace him into a more favorable position, allowing you to control the fight better. As an example, say your friend is fighting Enmity and he fucked up a couple of parries, he's not doing too hot right now, and you need to move him out of the way. You can forcefully pull him over to you, hit him a couple times, aggroing him to you, which gives everybody else time to regroup and stabilize. Supports can also use ranged mantras like Brachial Spear, Firing Line, and Flame Sentinel to hit Enmity from safe distances while they have nothing else to do. While it doesn't do a whole lot of damage because he has high resistances, it gives him extra things to do, and free damage will always be free damage. When being grabbed by Enmity, you can spam Vent. By timing it correctly, it can also help you get out of grabs in certain scenarios. But as you stand over the fallen demon, your loot in hand, you realize that the true enmity was the guild members who wiped along the way. Thank you guys so much for watching this guide. I really hope it was helpful. If you guys enjoy stuff like this that's very thorough, please subscribe and stay tuned for more in-depth guides for different mechanics for new players. I'll see you guys around.
To bring you this important message.
If you've been paying
Oh, done.
Shit.
Is he gonna crit it?
Oh, he critted it! Oh! Oh no!